Once upon a time, many, many years ago, in a far distant land, there was a king who had 3 sons. One day this king became ill, and nobody knew how to cure him. His sons were very sad about this, and one day, as they were walking in the gardens of the palace, wondering what to do, they suddenly saw an old man who came up to them and asked them what the matter was. When they told him, the old man said,
"There is something that will cure your father. It is the water of life. All he needs is 1 drink of it, but it is very difficult to find."
Now the eldest son said to himself, "If I manage to find the water of life for my father, he is sure to appoint me as the next king." In that country the king always appointed his own successor. At first the king said, "No, I have heard that the search for the water of life is dangerous, and I would not have you do such a thing." But the young man insisted, and finally the father gave him permission to go. So the prince set out on horseback. After journeying for some time, he came to a very deep valley with rocks all around him, and he saw a little man with a strange hat and cloak. And the little man said, "Where are you going, prince?" The prince said, "That's nothing to you, you insolent fellow," and he rode his horse impatiently past the little man. Now the little man thought that this prince was being discourteous, and through his special powers he made it impossible for the prince to move any further. The prince found that he couldn't go forward, he couldn't go back, he couldn't get off the horse. In fact, he couldn't do anything, and all he heard was laughter all round him. Now in the meantime the old king was waiting and waiting, and so were the brothers, for the return of the eldest prince. And when they got no news, the second son said, "Father, I shall now go and bring back the water of life." At first the king did not want to let him go, but in the end he gave his permission, and the second son set out. As he went on his way, this prince said to himself, "I shall bring back the water of life to cure my father, and he will surely make me his heir." Now the prince, as he went along the road, met the same little man who stopped his brother. And the little man said, "Prince, where are you off to?" The prince, who was very rude, said, "Be off with you, I have no time for you." And he rode scornfully past. The little man put the same spell on this prince as he had put on his eldest brother, and he too found himself paralyzed and unable to move. Now when the second prince didn't come back, when the old king and the youngest son had waited and waited for news, the youngest prince went to his father and said, "Father, I will now go and bring the water of life for you." At first the father did not want him to go, but finally he reluctantly agreed. So the young man set off, and when he got to the same spot where his brother had met the little man, he saw him sitting there with his funny hat and cloak. The little man said to him, "Where are you going, prince?" And the prince said, "I am going to find the water of life to cure my father. Can you help me?" And the little old man said, "Do you know anything about how or where to find the water of life?" "No," said the prince. "Well," said the little man, "since you have been courteous to me, and you are intelligent enough to know that you need advice, I will tell you. The water of life is found in a well in a magic castle. Now I will give you a wand of iron and 2 loaves of bread. And when you get to the castle, strike its door of iron 3 times with the rod, and it will open. Inside you will find 2 hungry lions. Throw down the loaves, and you will be able to pass them safely. Then hurry on to the well inside and take some of the water of life before the bell strikes. But if you stay there too long, the door of iron will close, and you will never be able to escape." The prince thanked the little man, and took the rod and the bread, and went on and on over sea and over land, until he came to the end of his journey. And he found everything as the little man had said. When the door had flown open, and when the lions were eating the bread, he saw he had come into a huge, enormous hall. In the hall there were a number of people sitting around as if in a trance. And he took rings off their hands and put them on his fingers. And in another room there was a table with a sword and a loaf of bread on it, which he also collected. Then he came to a room where there was a beautiful maiden sitting on a couch. And she welcomed him and said, "Set me free, and you may have my kingdom. If you come back in a year and a day, the magic spell will have worn out, and we shall be able to get married." He said, "I must go and get the water of life for my father who is ailing, but I shall return in a year and a day." And the princess said, "Very well, go through that door and you will find the water of life." He went through the door and saw a well in the inner gardens of the castle, and he took some water and put it into a bottle. Now the youngest prince felt that his mission was all but accomplished, and when he saw a beautiful couch with silken draperies on it, he thought he would just sit down and rest. He sat down, but he soon fell asleep. Then suddenly he woke, hearing a sort of rattle, which was the bell starting to strike. So he jumped up from the couch, and taking up the bottle of water, the loaf, and the sword, he managed to get out of the iron door just before it closed. Then the young prince started a journey homeward, and his way led through a country where everybody was starving. He gave them some of the bread which he had taken from the table in the magic castle, and they found that there was magic bread enough for everybody in the whole country. But the prince did not have time to receive their thanks. He spurred his horse on, and then he came to a country which was dreadfully threatened by a terrible enemy. So he handed the sword from the castle to the king of that country, because it was a magic sword which would defeat any enemy. Then the young man urged his horse on, and finally he came to the little man who had told him where to look for the water of life. He said to the little man, "I am in a great hurry to get back to my father, but I wonder what happened to my 2 brothers who set off in front of me to find the water of life." The little man said, "They were so insolent, they were so arrogant, and they valued advice and knowledge so little, that I have paralyzed them with a spell." The young prince asked that they should be released, and the little man said, "Very well then, I shall release them for your sake, but I warn you they are very bad people and no good will come of this." "They are my brothers, however," said the youngest prince. And so eventually the little man let them go. The 3 princes now set off for their father's bedside, and as they went the youngest prince told his brothers the whole story of his adventures. But when the young man was asleep one night on the homeward journey, the 2 brothers plotted his downfall. They stole the water of life and put some ordinary water instead into the bottle in which he carried it. And so when all 3 arrived back at their father's court, the elder brothers had the real water of life. The young prince went forward and gave his water to his father, and since it was only ordinary water, the old king was not made any better at all. Then the 2 other princes produced their water, saying, "Here, father, is the real water of life. Our brother is not telling the truth. He never found the real water of life. We had the adventures which he claims to have been his." The old king sipped the water, and as he did, he was completely and at once restored to health. He became so angry at what he thought was the deceitfulness of his youngest son that he sent him away with a soldier to be killed, and then he rewarded his 2 other sons with costly gifts. Now the young prince was led into the forest by the soldier, and the soldier seemed rather sad. So the young prince said to him, "My friend, I have been unjustly accused. I am quite innocent of the charges laid against me." The soldier said, "I am afraid it is my duty to kill you." But the prince said, "Give me your cloak, and I will give you mine. You can take my cloak back to the king and say that you have killed me, and I promise to disappear forever." The soldier agreed, and the young man plunged into the forest. Now it was not long afterwards that a resplendent embassy arrived from the country which had been saved from famine by the young prince, with a full story of how it had been he, and no one else, who had saved their country. And then, not long afterwards, rich gifts were sent from the second kingdom, which had been saved by the young man through the magic sword. Now the old king realized that his two elder sons had not been telling the truth. And he said, "It is very sad that I had him put to death without giving adequate thought to the matter." And the soldier, as it happened, was present in court when the king said this aloud. And he stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, he is still alive. I took pity on him, although I did disobey your orders." And he explained what had happened. The king was overjoyed, and sent messages to all the kings and princes of the world, explaining that he had unjustly accused his son, and that he wanted him to come home again. Meanwhile, the princess in the enchanted castle was eagerly awaiting the return of the youngest prince. She had a road of gold made leading from the palace some distance to the main highway, and she gave orders that whoever came straight up the golden road and did not follow it to the right or left would be her lover. And anybody else would not be the true youngest prince and should be taken into custody. The young prince, meanwhile, was making his way as well as he could to try to fulfill his promise to rescue the princess in a year and a day. Now the two other brothers, knowing the story of the princess in the magic castle, and fearing the wrath of their father, decided to go and try to capture her for themselves. They got on their horses, and they rode far and they rode fast. When they got to the golden road, one said, "This road is too beautiful to ride on," and he turned his horse and rode on the right-hand side of it. The guards, when they saw him do this, took him immediately in charge. And the second prince, when he saw the golden road, thought, "This road is too beautiful, I must not tread on it." And he, too, turned, and he rode on its left side. And the guards, when they saw this, imprisoned him. Eventually, travelling slowly, the young prince arrived at the golden road. And when he got to its edge, he just glimpsed the castle, and he thought only of the princess and could see no other form of beauty. The road was completely invisible to him, because he thought only of being reunited with his beloved. He went straight down the middle of the road, up to the iron gates, and the guards let him in. The princess was overjoyed at his arrival, and after they had embraced one another, she told him that she had received a message from his father the king, saying that all was now well. The young prince told her the whole story of the treachery of his brothers, and the princess said, "They are here. My guards are holding them in the dungeons." So the young prince said, "Let them go." And as soon as they were released, they fled by ship to some very remote place, and have never been seen since. So the young man and the princess went to celebrate their wedding at the court of the old king, and they invited everybody, including the first old man and the little old man who had advised them so well. And everyone lived happily ever after.